Welcome back to Buy or Buy. Today we're looking at the 2003 to 2010 Chrysler PT Cruiser GT Turbo, the hot rod version of the retro wagon everyone has an opinion about. It was designed by Bryan Nesbitt, the same guy who later penned the Chevy HHR, with 1930s panel van styling and built in Toluca, Mexico. The GT got a 2.4-liter turbo making 215 horsepower early on, bumped to 230 from mid-2005, closely related to the engine in the Dodge Neon SRT-4. Front-wheel drive, manual or automatic. On paper, it's genuinely quick. In practice, this is where we have to be honest about why it's a buy.
230 turbocharged horsepower in a retro hot rod wagon. $27K new, $5K now. Quick on paper, but head gaskets, turbos, and a post-100K meltdown make this one a money pit.
Okay, so under the hood lies the absolute heart of the GT model. That 2.4-liter turbocharged inline-four? Well, it's essentially a slightly detuned version of the exact same high-output powertrain found in the legendary tire-shredding Dodge Neon SRT-4. Dropping this potent, tuner-ready engine into a practical retro family wagon was honestly a wonderfully wild move by Chrysler back in that era. You get front-wheel drive and the choice of either a 5-speed Gitrag manual gearbox or a 41TE 4-speed automatic. So on paper, having SRT-4 DNA wrapped up in a spacious, quirky wagon sounds like an incredible bargain, right? But as we dig deeper into the mechanics, the harsh reality of actually keeping this drivetrain alive tells a much, much darker story.
Section 1. Who and cross-shop. Who buys it, and what else is out there? The demographic drawn to this car is, well, uniquely divided. On one hand, you've got your dedicated retro styling fans who absolutely love the bold, unapologetic 1930s aesthetic. Then you have the custom scene builders. You know, the folks who love to slam these wagons on air suspensions, chop the roofs, and tweak the bodywork for car shows. You've also got bargain hunters scanning the classifieds, completely blinded by the promise of cheap, raw turbo power for under $5,000. But crucially, there's a fourth group, and that group includes anyone on the used car market who desperately needs a stark, serious reliability warning before they hand over their hard-earned cash for what just looks like a fun weekend toy.
Because when we actually look at the cross-shop, you genuinely have better options from this exact same era. If you want a retro wagon with forced induction, look at the Chevrolet HHR SS. It's the better-built sleeper in this batch. Sitting on a more modern platform with a renowned Ecotec engine, it handles better and brakes less. Now, if you simply want this 2.4-liter engine and you just want to go fast, the Dodge Neon SRT-4 is the quicker, significantly more focused cousin for a raw, track-ready experience. For purely aesthetic cross-shopping, you have the Volkswagen New Beetle for peak retro charm, the Scion XB as a boxy, wildly practical alternative, and even the non-turbo PT Cruiser. I mean, sure, it's much cheaper and noticeably slower, but it's far simpler to fix.
Bottom line, the PT Cruiser GT tempts with cheap power, but faces fierce, better-built retro competition.
Section 2. The gems. High horsepower and heavy heritage. First up, let's talk about the sheer output. 230. That is the horsepower this high-output turbo pushed from mid-2005 onwards, along with the deeply satisfying 245 pound-feet of torque. Early 2003 and 2004 models weren't far behind either, sitting at 215 horsepower. Utilizing a stout Mitsubishi TD04 turbocharger, this engine gives the PT Cruiser a serious, entirely unexpected punch. When you hit the throttle in an Inferno Red GT, that forced induction kicks in with a wave of torque steer that completely transforms this docile grocery getter into an aggressive, muscular sleeper.
And when the light turns green, the result is a 6.7-second 0 to 60 time. Sitting on a neon-derived platform outfitted with a GT-specific sport suspension and four-wheel disc brakes, this wagon has the brute force to actually back up those hot rod looks. It pulls hard through the mid-range, surprising modern traffic, and honestly putting a genuine smile on your face when that turbo spools up.
Inside the cabin, Chrysler rewarded buyers with cool enthusiast touches. Most notably, a factory A-pillar turbo boost gauge right in your line of sight, along with matching body color or chrome interior trim pieces that really tie the whole hot rod vibe together. Beyond the styling, it remains incredibly practical. We're talking tall, flexible seating and genuinely versatile cargo space with a removable rear shelf. Designer Bryan Nesbitt really knocked the peak retro craze design out of the park here, seamlessly blending that heavy 1930s panel van inspiration with modern hot rod energy straight off the Toluca assembly line. Which brings us to the ultimate temptation, the price tag. $5,000. This car carried a respectable MSRP of between $20,000 and $27,000 when it was brand new. Today, in the used market, massive depreciation has dragged that value down into the dirt, sitting roughly between $3,000 and $8,000. It is astoundingly cheap to buy your way into this level of straight-line performance.
Bottom line, it's a genuinely quick, highly practical piece of peak retro craze history that costs almost nothing to buy.
Section 3. The issues, where all that cheap speed falls apart.
The mechanical realities of this 2.4-liter powertrain are devastating, and it all comes down to one thing: heat. First, the engine is highly prone to catastrophic head gasket failures. The tightly packed engine bay creates massive heat soak, which frequently overheats the block, warping the aluminum head and destroying the gasket. That is a brutal $1,500 to $3,000 repair. Second, that exact same heat soak literally cooks the oil sitting inside the turbocharger feed lines. The oil turns into hard carbon, a process called coking, which blocks the flow, starves the turbo of lubrication, and grinds it to a halt. Expect a $1,200 to $2,500 bill for a turbo replacement. Because of these systemic thermal issues, owners report a massive, broad reliability decline the absolute second this car crosses the 100,000-mile mark.
And you know the reason those repair bills are so agonizingly high? It's the nightmare engine bay. The very retro styling that makes the exterior look so cool dictates a heavily sloped nose, resulting in an engine bay with almost zero working clearance. Simple jobs like replacing spark plugs, swapping an alternator, or fixing an AC compressor require mechanics to practically contort themselves or systematically disassemble half the front clip. A standard 2-hour job on a normal car quickly turns into a massive 6-hour teardown on the PT Cruiser GT, causing labor rates to just skyrocket.
And the cascade of failures just continues down the drivetrain. The 41TE 4-speed automatic transmission is a known weak point that gets completely stressed out and eventually shredded by the turbo's torque. The radiator fan module frequently dies, which actively causes the engine to overheat, which then blows the head gasket we literally just discussed. Add in heavy front-end suspension wear and electrical gremlins like failing window regulators. On a minor level, you're getting just 19 to 26 miles per gallon while having to pump premium fuel. Combine all that with cheap interior plastics that constantly rattle and squeak, a tall, top-heavy body that inherently hurts the handling dynamics, and styling that remains highly divisive, and, well, the daily driving experience quickly starts to sour.
Bottom line, the incredibly low purchase price is instantly erased by catastrophic repair bills for head gaskets, turbos, and cramped engine bay labor. Verdict? Buy. A gamble that doesn't pay off.
The constant repair drumbeat of head gaskets, turbo wear, a weak automatic, and a well-documented tendency to fall apart after 100,000 miles with AC, transmission, and electrical gremlins make ownership a gamble that usually just doesn't pay off. Buy. For most buyers, the purchase price is temptingly low, but the agonizing repair drumbeat erases any perceived savings immediately. This makes it the absolute buy counterpart to the better-built HHR SS in this exact same batch. Now look, there is one incredibly narrow exception here. If you can hunt down a low-mileage, impeccably documented 5-speed manual GT and you buy it dirt cheap strictly as a quirky weekend toy with a full, rigorous head gasket and turbo inspection completed beforehand and absolutely zero expectations of trouble-free daily use, then maybe it might just be worth a flyer. But for the vast majority of buyers out there looking for reliable fun, you really need to look elsewhere. For the same retro wagon idea done right, cross-shop the Chevy HHRS. And if you simply want the thrill of that high-output 2.4-liter turbo engine, but with significantly more driving focus, go track down a Dodge Neon SRT-4.
I'll leave you with this final thought to consider. Is the quirky retro charm truly worth the inevitable $3,000 head gasket repair on a $5,000 car? Think about that before you hand over your cash. Thanks for joining me for this explainer on the PT Cruiser GT, and I'll catch you on the next Buy or Buy.